Music taste is so important because it's almost like a window into your soul. What you enjoy to listen to on a day-to-day basis informs so much about your personality and who you really are as a person. If you ask a girl for her Spotify playlist, you're basically asking her on a first date. And if you had parents that introduced you to music, you have a bedrock of the classics and the greats. You were introduced to that stuff. But for me, my introduction was video game music. My early years were consumed by YouTube rips, Brawl BRSTMs extended, and SoundCloud trap remixes of my favorite songs. That's all I had, because that's what I knew I enjoyed. That music scratched an itch to me that nothing else could. I would listen to the radio and I would be bored by it because it didn't have that spice that the video game music had. I love repetitive music and electronic sound, and now I have the words to describe what that is. If I could go back in time, I'd say, oh, I like drum and bass, I like club, I like house. But at the time, all I could say was, I like Sonic Adventure. I like Crash Bandicoot. I like Mario Galaxy. And the looks you'd get would be so embarrassing. Like, they would look at you like you're absolutely insane. Like, what do you mean you like Mario Kart 8 music? That's not an album. It's not an artist. And in some ways they're right too, because video game music can be so many different genres too. I think of like nu metal or chiptune or atmospheric or orchestral. It could be anything, but all I had to say was video game music, because to me it was informed by the early 2000s trends. I mostly played DS, PlayStation 2, and Wii, and a lot of those games were filled with music like jungle and drum and bass. Kids my age would be into hip-hop and pop music and more normal stuff, and that's not to put down that music either. In hindsight, it's great, but it just didn't scratch my itch. I see memes online of like Persona 5 fans that when they discover jazz for the first time, they compare it to Persona 5. And a lot of the times you're making fun of young kids who just introduced to jazz through that one game they played. They've never heard jazz outside of that one game, unfortunately. Jazz nowadays is relegated to elevator music, and so to hear good jazz, even in an unconventional place like a video game, can be transformative for a kid who's never heard that stuff, and it really resonates with them. So if they compare Miles Davis to Persona 5, so be it. Either way, they're a jazz fan at the end of the day. That's a beautiful thing, I think. Sure, it's cringe to be a little ignorant of the genre and to compare everything to the first thing you ever saw, but it's all they know. It's sort of like making fun of people for mispronouncing words for reading it in a book. Like, they encountered that word first on the written page and not spoken, so they mispronounce it. No reason to make fun of them for it. I have a lot of sympathy for kids like that who can't describe what they enjoy. You feel like an outsider and you can't explain why it's so good to you. And by the time you have the words to describe it, the time has already passed. Like, no one cares what you're like now. It makes it more socially acceptable, but it's hard to describe. Nowadays, thankfully, video game music is less of a social faux pas. I think a lot of that is owed to artists like Toby Fox and Mick Gordon, the people behind the Undertale and Doom soundtracks. I think Megalovania was the very first mainstream video game song I've ever heard. And that was a beautiful moment in time, around 2017, when that came out and people really enjoyed Megalovania. And now I meet people who listen to Mario Kart music to study, and Nintendo music in general. And they listen to it more freely, and it's really a beautiful thing. Every other meme I see online, it has some video game music as a background track, so I think that's great. But video game music has a long and storied history, starting with like Koji Kondo behind the NES. Some of my favorite artists include Yoko Shimomura behind Kingdom Hearts and Mario & Luigi fame, Grant Kirkhope behind Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye, Tim Follin, a underrated composer from the NES era, who did beautiful tracks on things like Silver Surfer, really just a legend. And then Stuart Copeland, the drummer of The Police who worked on Spyro.
Now let's get some heavy metal going here. Okay. They pay me for this.
Really beautiful artists, and all of their talents went towards video games. This is a shorter video, but I wanted to just give a shout out to people who like repetitive music without lyrics, and a lot of the time they come around video game music as their favorite. Taking over for Maricong this week. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.